Oh man, I'm so excited to see how Madara vs Aizen turned out. But first, as a tradition of this year, we're going to look over every single other Naruto episode. Of course, I've already reviewed some of them. Gaara vs Toph was reviewed in, well, my last review. At least I don't know, I might have made another review between then and now. But the Avatar episode's review, that's where we find Gaara vs Toph. Roshi vs Jiraiya was in the Reverse Flash vs Goku Black review. And All Might vs Might Guy was in the finale ranking. My basic opinions is that Gaara vs Toph has a very fun analysis, but I don't like the fight. Roshi vs Jiraiya was at one point underrated, but now I think it's almost overrated, because now I see a bunch of people giving it like this massive 10 out of 10, which I wouldn't agree with. And All Might vs Might Guy, I was too harsh on in my original season's retrospective, but that whole retrospective is rubbish. So, I'm just excited to get to it. Let's go. I want to get through these episodes so I can get straight to Madara vs Aizen. I need to know how good it is.
Sorry, Bleach fans. I know you all really wanted to win, but unfortunately, this wasn't it.
I was really curious to see how this episode would turn out on a rewatch, and it's good. But the analysis is just sort of okay. It's not like anything special, but it did get some chuckles out of me. The ending of both analyses of being about their sons and then having the same close enough joke but from different hosts in different contexts is nice. I enjoy a lot of the jokes in Ichigo's analysis. Naruto's was sort of just, And the fight, meanwhile, is a mixed bag, with some great high points and some really dodgy low points. Let's go point by point and identify them. I really dislike the setup. Ichigo just shows up and attacks Naruto for having a strong spiritual presence. Not great. On the other hand, though, I do like that they kept Ichigo's being invisible a factor. Naruto's dodge and kunai throw come off as instinctual reactions before he even realizes the guy he's fighting is invisible, too. The feeling of speed when they're running through the forest is great, and I like Kurama talking to Naruto whenever he does and helping him to see. I like the little bit of strategy Naruto used with the substitution jutsu and Rasengans, followed by the fucking awesome Believe It shout. I never thought they could make a Believe It sound cool, but Naruto just blankly telling Ichigo he can see him now and screaming the Believe It at him with that one strike is genuinely probably the coolest moment in this entire fight. Naruto isn't silly or goofy or quirky in this moment, he's dead fucking serious, and that's great. The Getsuga Tensho from Ichigo afterwards is also really awesome, but I don't like this part of the fight much. Why? It's just so confusing. Sure, Ichigo standing motionless and ready to go against the whole army of clones is cool, but the whole sequence where they attack him is really confusing with the camera going fucking everywhere, the weird shot of Ichigo dabbing left and dabbing right to block Naruto's arm, Ichigo's PNGs flying all over the place to kill these clones somehow, and what? And then when the sweet mercy or something coherent happens, it's Naruto becoming a half-naked girl. Though I do like Ichigo's blank response. Naruto's revealed that it was just a setup for an uppercut to Rasen Shuriken, and the badass Bankai shout and fucking demonic howl is great though. Ichigo's line following it always sounded weird to me though, I don't really know why, it just, We get more confusing shit is he hits Naruto with a big fuck off blast and then Naruto activates the Kurama avatar, but we don't get an establishing shot. Naruto does it and it's on screen for maybe a whole second, and most of it is with an explosion effect over it. Genuinely, I missed this when I first watched it. I can see people missing this because of how brief it was when it looked like it transformed. It then immediately cuts to Ichigo getting pummeled with no breathing room for it to sink in as what's happened, and no time to give the transformation scene impact by focusing on it. The pacing at the end is kind of rushed. Finally, we get a proper shot of it, and it's right at the end. So this is fucking great. I love Ichigo lying there like a sack of shit all bloody, but then just acting like nothing's even happened as he goes into Mugetsu and literally blows away the Kurama avatar. The Mugetsu itself is fucking amazing. The almost complete silence as it envelops the area and takes away the clones with just the sound of Naruto's gasping as it hits is so haunting and has so much impact. Naruto's following cry for Kurama is delivered perfectly, with the Mugetsu being scattered before Ichigo's reverted to his human state. Love that sequence. But then, this is what we see, and not for very long, and due to the amount of effects and the overall look of the animation, it's hard to see what this is. In fact, the limited amount of time and the fact that the following shot is of Naruto's eyes without any avatar made me initially think he was in some sort of sage mode. But no, he's actually in a giant Kurama. He was in a giant Kurama avatar? What? Why was there not a better establishing shot of this form? It's just this, which is done at a very specific angle we haven't seen prior, and covered in effects and saturation. Ichigo picking up the stick in a last-ditch attempt to keep standing and fighting is a great character moment though. Yeah, it's ultimately useless, but I like that he kept to his refusal to let himself die. We get a pretty great death as Naruto launches the double big fuck-off testicle chakras and Ichigo is vaporized in a really well-done hand-drawn bit, leading to a genuinely great shot of the explosion from space.
That explosion there, by the way, is about 5 teratons of TNT according to Phantom Falcon's calc, which actually, coincidentally, matches with what they put the tailpiece bombs in earlier in the episode.
What a fucking coincidence, am I right? Yeah, it is a coincidence. But then it's ruined by Naruto's line afterwards. Instead of falling to the ground tired and exhausted from the fight, something to show that Ichigo was a genuine challenge and that Naruto actually got close to dying for the Mugetsu, he just lands in a tree and acts like it was no deal. I imagine that probably rubs some Ichigo fans the wrong way, and I dislike it. I'm not even a fan of Ichigo. I've never read Bleach. It's weird that Naruto would just land and be like, oh well, that was barely a fight, I didn't even give it half of my all, like that was no effort, what a loser. God, I'd have more trouble if I tried to beat up my wife. At the very least, the aftermath scenes that I loved when they used to do, but I get why they don't, seeing as they seem to rarely have the budget to make the animations the best they can be, let alone these little tidbits, are really nice. Naruto going to eat but getting cucked by Luffy is funny, and I like Chuck and Sega fighting, being distracted by the explosion, then just getting back to fighting like nothing happened. Now, let's talk about one major issue I have with the animation overall that couldn't be summed up in one bit. The saturation is so fucking high, and I don't know why. The animation looks really fuzzy and blurry at points, with some difficult to make out elements due to the fuzziness and oversaturation of the colors. It makes everything look like it's shiny and glowing metallic. It's really strange and distracting, and I don't like it. On the other hand though, the voice acting is fantastic. He who is absolutely not Johnny Young Bosch does an amazing job at Ichigo, sounds just like him and also is directed well. Noel Wiggins meanwhile did a really solid as Kurama, and I wish he got to deliver a few more lines, and of course Dawn M. Bennett knocked it out of the Adam Park as Naruto, delivering all of her lines fantastically and pulling off some really good line reads that were way better than I would have ever expected. And the conclusion is amazing. Regardless of if it's accurate or if the result is right or blah blah blah, the conclusion goes really in depth, tackling elements of if Naruto could see Ichigo, going into the difference between movement and reaction speed, going really in depth to calculate Ichigo's stats and abilities compared to Naruto. It's a full 6-minute conclusion that's as long as an average character's analysis. I have a lot of respect for this, and I would love way more conclusions like this in Ryu vs Jin. So what are my thoughts overall? As you can tell, there's a lot I love about this fight, and there's a lot that I really don't. The analysis overall is good, and the conclusion is fantastic, and the fight's a mixed bag. Things like the saturation and shiny look combined with some really nauseating camera motions at times take a lot away, as it does basically the entire second half of the fight, outside of some good line reads. It ends up being really confusing. But there are some really good things that are done so well. Overall, I'm going to settle on a 7. I wish I could give it higher, but this is just not an episode I remember being this flawed. Sad. But, you know what? For the first Naruto vs Bleach episode, I'm sure this is just a great sign of what we're going to get when Madara vs Aizen shows up. Also, Broomstick confirms his mother is dead in this episode.
This was an extremely close match. This would equal about 285 Zeta tons of TNT.
5,000 times greater than the Naruto Moon Slice.
Aang, Terry, Korra, Sasuke, can we ever have Wiz read out elements without Broomstick making a fucking Captain Planet joke? The analysis is fine here. I can't recall any times I found anything particularly funny, and the checklist format wasn't too interesting. Though I recognize with how Sasuke's power set is, it's basically completely necessary. I don't know, I just wasn't too into this one. I know I'm sort of biased against Sasuke, or at least I was when I first watched this. I'm not dislike Sasuke nearly as much as I used to. But even Hiei, who I do like well enough from what I saw in Yu Yu, just doesn't have the most interesting analysis. Blank face was me throughout this whole thing. The fight, however, is solid? Well, after the first bit where they fight because of no reason, and we get some really wimpy feeling punches. Once we get to the sword fight, we get to see one of the real highlights of this episode, the hand-drawn stuff. It can look really good at points. And overall, what happens is quite nice. But I can't much help but notice it doesn't actually feel like much happened. I don't know, that might just be me, but this fight feels like it's only about 3 minutes from the first to last blow, and that's because it is. And this is where I feel the overall quality of the hand-draw stuff and sheer quantity of it is what kind of shoots the episode in the foot. Like, at no point in this episode does Sasuke and Hiei actually throw hands after the first bit where Hiei attacks Sasuke out of nowhere and misses his big punch. We get a sword fight, which is pretty cool, but after that, everything is just them throwing out their big attacks with no actual hand-to-hand sword fighting. The latter of which I can excuse, as Sasuke does break Hiei's sword, but after that, it's just boom, Sharingan, ooh, dragon thingy, big sussy boy, more dragons, Kieran, and then the fight ends. Like, yeah, it's cool and all, and it all looks really nice, but it's just kind of boring. I think it all is drawn really well. Sasuke's Genjutsu looks great, the Susanoo in particular looks stellar, and the Kieran looks fantastic. And the Kieran bit is probably the bit I have the least issue with, I think that's fine. And honestly, the Genjutsu is cool too. It just feels like there should have been some actual fighting happening between the two, between the Genjutsu and the Susanoo. And let's talk about the Sussy Boy. This thing is awesome. I love it. It looks great. But all it does is throw one attack and then job immediately. I get they didn't have the time, budget, or motivation to draw a full-length fight with the fucking thing, but let's look at the total amount of hits thrown out by each character between the Genjutsu and the ending. Hiei throws out 4, and Sasuke throws out 2. That's kind of not okay. The Susanoo Sword Swing and Kieran are the only attacks Sasuke busts out after Hiei gets serious, and Hiei just throws dragons 4 times without doing anything else. This isn't even a case of do more with their abilities, it's just have more actual martial arts or swordplay, because that helps to break up the big fuck off attacks from feeling like just a sequence of necessary powers to implement. This battle genuinely has the exact opposite of the thing that I normally would have an issue with, not using enough of the character's potential. If anything, I'd say this episode tried too much to use potential that wasn't in their budget. I don't particularly think Kirin was necessary. It's cool, don't get me wrong, but between this cool Kirin moment and having a proper Susanoo fight that leads to the big explosion, I take the latter any day of the week. And still, the death is great. I like the build up, I like the way the two both get horribly fucked up and not just the guy that died. I like Hiei's last night acknowledging how fucking great he found that fight. Seriously, more of that please. It's a nice character moment that makes me think, oh hey, they did not just see these guys as edgelords, they actually cared about the characters. I also like that both said, no match, when they went for a big fuck off attack that ultimately didn't really do much. Overall, while I do think this fight is solid, I just think it has a pretty big lack of general combat that would make it feel like a fight. It comes off more like just a checklist of moves they wanted without any connective tissue. Imagine if Dio vs Alucard didn't have any of the sequences where Alucard fired bullets and Dio dodged them, or if Goku Black vs Reverse Flash went from the start of the fight directly into the phasing and Rose, then immediately into the Kamehameha without any of the bits of the two just throwing out attacks and having a dynamic. That's sort of what Sasuke vs Hiei feels like to me, almost unfinished. Like, they didn't have enough time to complete it, so what they had was all the big moments they wanted to animate first, and they didn't have time to animate the in-betweens. I don't know, it's still good, it's just not one of my favorites. Sadly, a 6 out of 10 for me. And you know, I feel bad saying that, because I fully intended to give this sick episode I remembered a 7 or an 8 for being really good. But then aside from the hand-drawn stuff being really wicked, and a death that's great, this battle has nothing going on for me, and that kinda sucks. But if this is just a starting point for how an Uchiha fight goes, oh, I can't wait!
Of course Madara won! Aizen only shit myself!
Alright, here it is boys, the moment I've been waiting for months. The battle that I wish they didn't announce early so I could have been popping off so hard when it was revealed, but also I'm glad they announced early so I had time for the fucking behemoth of a prediction. How did I like the episode? Did I even like the episode? I think it's finally time to find out. The analysis for this episode is pretty damn good. Madara's is excellent, aside from the fucking Big Chungus line, which is only bad because it's coming from Boomstick. I find Big Chungus ironically funny, but not when Boomstick's saying it. It just loses the charm. The cutaway Gago is great. I love Ben's performance in this moment, it's genuinely funny. I like Boomstick calling out the audience after it's over, and I just really like the editing, jokes. I love Boomstick's line about Madara not really needing any more fucking powers. I love the edit of the Sharingan going into the next sidebar, and of course the Madara copy pasta. Absolutely based. The ending bit of Boomstick doing poetry was pretty cool too, and overall made the Romeo and Juliet shit worth something in the end. Which is good because I was starting to get a bit uncomfortable with the Romeo and Juliet parallels between Madara and Hashirama, because the two are reincarnations of Indra and Ashura, who are brothers. Aizen's analysis isn't necessarily bad, but it is a step down. Instead of a one-off Big Chungus that makes me cringe, Boomstick has a sentence about Galaxy Brain 5D chess shit. Fuck off. Aside from that, it's mostly good. The jokes are on point, analysis is great, flow's good, deliveries are good, it just falls flat on the cutaway. This isn't funny. I'm sorry, Boomstick gushing over a fucking chair is just... it doesn't work for me. But then the ending clip is this one fucking one that everyone posts on Discord with text on the bottom that as a meme, and I just lose my shit seeing this. So the analysis is solid, one of the most solid sets of analyses this season, only rivaled in overall quality by Yoda vs Mickey and Dio vs Alucard. But the fight then. This is what had me worried, because for the first time in a while, a matchup I actually loved had a preview that I was really worried about. Let's get out of the way. I think the start is a little shit. Just from a writing standpoint, for what reason is Madara just shitting out a fire jutsu that encircles Aizen? Why is he doing this? Why is Aizen here? What led up to this? Who knows? It's not like there was any other way this fight could have started better that we have an animation of to prove it. And yes, I do think this is kind of important given these are characters whose whole personality revolves around the epic planning abilities. To have them not have any plan leading in is a little weird. Then we have Aizen's sprite. What the fuck is this hideous thing? He's pink! His chin looks like it sticks out past his eyeline and gives him that American dad look. I don't like this. Mother on the other hand looks great. I mean, I still don't like and never will like these fully side-on views of characters. There's a reason Capcom's 5-degree rule exists. When they're completely side-on, they end up looking stiff and undynamic, flat and boring. And Madara looked like he was holding up a phone here the first time I saw it. I don't know. Aizen leaning forward, taking off his glasses and pulling out his sword looks so janked to fuck. The way he flops about like an inflatable balloon, it's just not on. At least Aizen walking up behind Madara is cool, even if his head is bean-shaped and he's super sunburnt. Then the fight starts, and I'm still not a fan. While Madara not only has a great looking sprite and isn't that janky, I can't say the same for Aizen. His sword swings at the start look super awkward, especially compared to Madara's, whose attacks seem to have a more natural body flow to them as he uses his center of gravity, as opposed to Aizen's swing is wrapping around with no sense of force. Also, his wide-eye face here is hilarious. Anyway, Madara does his wood jutsu and it looks terrible because they're barely textured brown rectangles, and Aizen apparently has shadow clone jutsu because he makes clones of himself several times here when moving. I don't get why this was done. It doesn't look good. Fade them so it looks like an after image. Aizen's swing at Madara here looks bad. Madara's mouth doesn't move as he goes for his partially formed Susanoo punch. And this is where the preview ended, and I was fucking worried. This was looking dire. But the question is, did it pick up? Well, Aizen uses Kyokusui Getsu on Madara, which is cool, and Aizen does this terrible pose, it looks so fucking bad. Then Madara headbutts him, which somehow causes Aizen's sword to leave his body without any blood or anything. Even after Madara Sharingan's out of the hypnosis, the sword is still in him, so that part genuinely happened. It's just kind of weird that there's no blood splatter when it leaves his body, it just sort of teleports to being outside of him. Then Madara spikes him with a down air and mocks his dumb ass. And then because Madara hit him a whole 2 times, Aizen decides to just randomly transform into his third form. Why? This is dumb, and it looks terrible when it's Sidon. I don't like Sidon sprites, they're flat and undynamic. He looks so thin here. The next shot is awesome though. Aizen swings his sword and creates a shockwave that ruptures the entire area. This is just raw power with excellent sound design, and the sound design only gets better from here. Aizen's wings vanish and he slaps the floor, which looks bad, but the fire jutsu looks cool. Aizen's Hado 90 shout and lack of incantation look dumb and is dumb, but sounds good. It's good delivery. But what Madara does in response to it is probably the coolest fucking usage of Black Coffin in anything ever. It makes the quick nature of Black Coffin believable as just cinematic timing, as in real time while Aizen is doing the incantation, Madara is in the process of fucking summoning the 10-tailed beast inside of the Black Coffin to bust out. Not only is the shot of the Black Coffin itself forming around Madara as he starts his jutsu really cool, but the 10 tails just exploding out from within is awesome. I know they like the budget to show the 10 tails, so just a silhouette of it being here then entering Madara works well enough for a show lacking 1 Minute Melee's budget. Though Aizen not reacting to it is kinda weird. So remember when I asked if the fight would pick up? Here we fucking go! Madara gets this really nice looking hand joint bit showing off his really handsome face. And there's this fucking raw as hell moment of him bringing down the meteor. This is how I wanted it! No build up, no trying to make it seem like this is some big deal, it's a huge part of Madara's kit. No, this meteor is the equivalent of Madara giving you a fucking backhand. An out of nowhere giant meteor that passed the clouds with some fucking stellar sound design, and the inclusion of parts of the area at the bottom to give a sense of scale for how fucking big this thing is. Sadly, Madara doesn't bring out the second meteor, which is my favorite part of the actual fight in the 1 Minute Melee. And I don't want to compare these two because one of them's incomplete, but the melee has the advantage there and it has the second meteor. But still, Madara pounding through Aizen's stupid shield and mopping him around is great, throwing him straight at the meteor, which Aizen pulls a Kenpachi to and slices in half. We get a really cool aerial fight. Aizen goes final form while slicing a meteor chunk in half. There's an awkwardly rigged bit of his mouth firing a laser, but I don't even care because it leads to the fucking amazing perfect Susanoo appearance. Materializing behind a cloud of dust and scouring it with a swing of his arm, Aizen just nopes out of there immediately and brings out Hado 99, which painfully has the frame rate issue of Dio's The World scene, which sucks, and it feels like it's a result of not having enough time to finish this segment of the animation. At least with Dio, who has one of my favourite line reads in the entire series, while here Aizen just stops talking after they show up. Somehow though, this still looks better than fucking Jump Force's Hado 99. That shit's weak. And Madara summoning his Limbo clones is weird because they don't really look like Limbo clones. They're not completely bleached white and don't have the transparent look like the 1 Minute Melee used. But the actual army fight is pretty cool and I didn't expect it. Wow, Death Battle doing something I didn't expect, imagine that. We get Madara throwing out TSOs at dragons or getting Vored, with the only weird bit being this Madara just kamikaze flying himself directly into the dragon's mouth for no reason. Madara jumping out of the perfect sus to attack Aizen across his Hado 99 is really cool, as is the speech. Until we get this face to Madara that looks horrifying. What the fuck is wrong with his eyes, his eyebrows, his mouth, his neck, his arm, his torso, and his hair? Everything is wrong here. On the other hand, somehow Aizen manages to look good doing his wild cackle, despite how much I don't like this design for him. We get this really cool side-by-side shot of their mad cackle that looks great, but also like Kaiba from that one Yu-Gi-Oh! Poker Night thing. There's a big explosion and suddenly the perfect sus has vanished, and now we're on to the end. Aizen impales Madara and kills him, which is a pretty obvious fake out. I heard some people bought it, which was a bit of a surprise to me, as I kinda knew from the start that there was gonna be a fake out. You don't do a battle like this and not have a fake out at the end. Apparently people said it's because there was already a fake out of Madara falling with just his arms lost while Aizen's falling in chunks, but That's not a fucking fake out. Aizen can regenerate from that. What? How is that a fake out? This should have, if they were to really do a fake out, Madara should have gotten a satisfying kill on Aizen, then Aizen impales him through the back, and then it's revealed to be another fake out. A double fake out. That would have been much cooler. I mean, to be fair, I can kind of see that, this would have been a really good death, with a really good death scream if it was legitimate. So I can kind of see how some might have bought it. But the music is still going. That kind of gives it away, right? If it had faded out at this point, I would have bought it maybe, but then Madara kills Aizen, and even with the TSO causing tons of blood somehow that Aizen can regenerate from and not erasing what they touched when they should, instead acting like just bludgeoning balls, along with a comparatively weak as hell death scream, and the chunks lying on the ground that because they're bloody he would regenerate from. I know they say TSO stops regeneration, but they also show that when they hit, it causes the victim to scatter into grey scraps, which is not what happened here. Despite all that, I can't dislike this death. You know why? Because Madara fucking won! And this lingering shot of Madara watching the meteor remnants fall was just long enough for me to be worried that this was yet another fake out. Which it wasn't, and that was awesome. And yes, that means I got more faked out by the actual death than the fake out. And then there's a conclusion, which is really good, but probably not as extensive as I'd like. It is half as long as Naruto vs Ichigo, despite having 10 times the stuff to talk about. I really wish they went a bit more in depth, actually going into all the scaling and stuff, especially Bleach's side to clarify why you believe their stats are relatively even. They went out of their way to cover why they used a thing neither Naruto or Ichigo were planetary, despite it not being brought up in the analysis for that episode, and I think that would have helped here too. As well as going over some of the things that are often taken out of context or not as impressive as they might seem, which are definitely being used against the episode by debunkers, and shitty Reddit posts nobody but those wanting to mock someone's take on the Discord server would read. So what did I think of the overall episode? Well, the analysis is excellent. This is one of my favorite analysis portions overall for an episode in this entire season, with what's basically a perfect Madara analysis outside of a single line I dislike, and that's it. The Romeo and Juliet stuff would have gotten it brought down too because incest is not to be supported even if it's spiritual incest, but the end of the joke retroactively makes me okay with it. And Boomstick seems so into it that it's stupidly funny at points. And hey, Madara and Hashirama are adults. Boomstick W over Wiz, you'll love to see it. Though I guess they're also dead, so Aizen's analysis isn't as perfect comparatively or at all, but it's still solid. And the fight has a lot going for it. The sprite for Madara looks excellent whenever he's not side on because I hate this positioning, custom sprites or not. Seriously, how does Toph have a custom sprite that isn't directly side on at all while Madara and Aizen can't have that? While the sprite for Aizen looks really bad with his glasses, not great without his glasses, generally fine whenever he's not side on for third form, and better than the actual disgusting look of the fourth form in the manga and anime. The voice acting is really solid, with NAL doing a really good voice for Madara with a great fake out death scream and a generally solid everything, and Philip Sacramento meanwhile also doing a great job for Aizen, but I don't care nearly as much for him, so I don't have any attachment to the performance. But aside from a death scream so lacking it contributed to me thinking it was a fake out, this is a really good performance too. And overall, the animation goes from really janky and off-putting with a ton of minor animation errors, awkward sprites for Aizen, and general strangeness, to a phenomenal second half with extremely good action, some amazing set pieces, great sound design, and not lacking perfect Susanoo usage. And I know that might seem odd, given Madara's Susanoo didn't technically do much more than Sasuke's Susanoo, both only threw out like a attack then clashed with some dragons, but Madara's doesn't die during this time, and in fact it gives Madara the vantage point he needs to run across Hado 99 and attack Aizen. You can remove Sasuke's Susanoo and go straight to fucking Kirin without changing the way the battle progressed, but you can't do the same for the perfect Susanoo. And I think that's part of what I love about this episode. It seems to take what did and didn't work from Naruto vs Ichigo and Sasuke vs Hiei and refine things. Naruto vs Ichigo didn't have any establishing shots, this one does. Sasuke vs Hiei didn't use a Susanoo much, this one does. Naruto vs Ichigo has an awkward saturation, this one doesn't. Sasuke vs Hiei doesn't have any fighting to break up the endless scouting of random abilities, no problem here. But it also takes the best part of this episode, the pacing, voice acting, interactions, and speed of Naruto vs Ichigo, and the effects, hand-drawn quality, and clashing of dragons with Susanoo for some reason, from Sasuke vs Hiei, and puts them into a single animation that's better than either of them. This is an 8 out of 10 episode, without a doubt. But personally, due to my attachment to Madara, the amount of build-up there was in those 2 weeks when not everyone was sure who'd win due to a debatable nature of the matchup, and the absolute satisfaction I felt at one of my favorite anime antagonists winning what was one of my most wanted episodes, fuck it, I'm giving this a 9 out of 10 from sheer bias. Which, saying out loud, I should have gone with my bias to give Astro Boy vs Mega Man a 10, but fuck it. I love this episode, and I hope my large quantity of criticisms doesn't make people think otherwise. You can't express love by ignoring negatives. To truly love something is to recognize its problems, but love it regardless, not to deny those problems exist at all. And this is just one of those cases. The episode was never getting a 10 after that animation preview, and personally I think overall, via just an unbiased quality analysis, it only deserves about an 8. But personal attachment here is giving this a 9, and I'm not sorry about it. You're gonna cry that I gave this a higher score than Biffweed? Good. So that was my review, and was I satisfied with the episode? If you really need me to clarify whether I was or not, then you, my friend, have some serious issues. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. You can go check out this week's review in the description and probably a link on screen. Enjoy. I hope you guys liked the review. Have a good one, fellas. I have words to say about the next time, but also the main words are that all my friends are really hyped for it, and that's all I care about. So